Karl Rove is exercised over this, so he's going to be talking on Fox News about how wrong Obama is. So this should be fun.
What the Obama administration has done in the last several days is very dangerous.
Of course.
What they've essentially said is, if we have policy disagreements with our predecessors, what we're going to do is we're going to turn ourselves into the moral equivalent of a Latin American country run by colonels and mirrored sunglasses, and what we're going to do is prosecute systematically the previous administration or threaten prosecutions against the previous administration based on policy differences. Is that what we've come to in this country? That if we have a change of administration from one party to another, that we then use the tools of the government to go systematically after the policy disagreements that we have with the previous administration? Now, that may be fine in some little Latin American country that's run by, the latest junta. It may be the way that they do things in Chicago, but that's not the way we do things here in America. And I thought this was reprehensible, not only Mr. Gibbs, but also, frankly, with all due respect to the President, what he said in the Oval Office today when he implied that he was open to and would encourage his Attorney General to look at should charges be filed against the former Attorney General and the lawyers who prepared these memos. I thought it was reprehensible. Look, I think the release of these memos helped our enemies enormously. It makes, when General Hayden was on the other day and was talking about how we have told the enemy the outer limits of where we're willing to go. Talk about creating a recruitment document. They can now say, the enemy can now go to jihadists and say, you don't need to worry about the Americans. Here's what they used to say that they were willing to do, and there were limits on that, and now they won't even do that. So if you ever get caught, don't worry, you'll get nice pastries and good clean coffee and a nice place to stay until they spring you out. And heck, you may end up in the United States of America, in the belly of the great Satan. I mean, this thing today is really, it ought to be troubling to any American, Republican or Democrat. Are we going to set up a policy that if you're a new administration and you disagree with your predecessors on a big complex question, that you're going to threaten investigations and you're going to threaten indictments and all over a policy disagreement?
Are you kidding me? Threaten investigations? Did he miss the entire 1990s when they investigated Bill Clinton's cat? Literally? And his Christmas card list? Literally? This guy's talking about, they're investigating over policy differences. And where do you draw the line on policy differences? Well, our policy was to torture the living crap out of people. Hey, that's a policy difference. And by the way, that torture oftentimes led to people dying, like at Bagram Air Base, where we hung a guy with a Palestinian hanging not by his neck but by his arms, and then we beat his legs until he had internal bleeding and died. And we knew before the last interrogation, the interrogator said we already knew he was innocent. So is that a policy difference? Because today, very important information, the Senate released a report saying that, in fact, absolutely, this policy of what is essentially torture, not essentially, it is torture, migrated from Guantanamo Bay to Afghanistan to Iraq, which we already knew, but it makes it different when it's an official Senate report. So they say, yes, the reason we had Abu Ghraib is because it went all the way down the line. And, in fact, Sanchez, who was in charge of the troops in Iraq at the time, authorized it. And then they had to pull it back and say, whoa, wait a minute. We were only supposed to do this torture to Taliban and al-Qaeda guys and not in Iraq. And at that time, they already had Abu Ghraib. And what did they do? Instead of blaming the guys who signed all those memos, of course, they blamed it on the troops. They found the lowest level troops they could find and said, you see that? There's a few bad apples. Paul Wolfowitz said that when he was one of the guys who was the architects of this torture policy. He signs off on the memos and then comes back and says, no, it was their fault for executing what I told them to do. So when Karl Rove talks about policy difference, this is not a policy difference. If it's something illegal you're doing and it leads to people dying through torture, and by the way, at Abu Ghraib, several people died too. And then, right after we realized what we were doing wrong, we released 90% of the people in Abu Ghraib because it turns out they were innocent. So, look, one thing about torture that I want to clarify that I'm not sure I've clarified before. I actually don't mind the vengeance part. I know I should, and I'm not proud of it, right? But when I think about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who actually was the mastermind behind 9/11, not being allowed to sleep for 11 days, and being waterboarded 183 times, I don't really mind. I have to confess that to you. And that, again, I'm not proud of it, and that doesn't make me a good guy, it makes me a bad guy. But when I think of, hey, look, 3,000 people died there. Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, atheists, agnostics, women, men, old, young, every nationality you can imagine. They were just going about their day, and this guy thought it would be a clever plot to go ahead and kill them all, and I'm sure he smiled over it. So the idea of him suffering through all that, and more, viscerally doesn't bother me, okay? That's not my problem. One, we shouldn't do things based on vengeance. We're America. That's supposed to stand for something. It's supposed to stand for partly putting aside the ugly, dark thoughts that we all have to some degree, and doing what's right, the shining city on a hill. And what part of what makes America great and exceptional, what used to make it, and hopefully will make it again, is that we stand for morality, and we help to bring this idea of human rights and morality, etc., throughout the world. Now, we're not the only ones who do it, but we did help create the United Nations, no question. We did help push through human rights throughout the world, and that's what America is. And to take that away and to give into this idea of vengeance is a terrible idea.